Hello and welcome everyone to another video. This is part 2 of my story when it comes down to hauntings and paranormal experiences. I'd like to continue and elaborate from part 1. So in a previous video I did talk about living at my mum's house and having my first real paranormal experience. So in today's video I will talk more about the sort of entities that I witnessed inside that house. So as mentioned before in the first video, the first entity was a spirit of an older woman that made herself very known in the house. She would make a lot of noise, especially when you're on your own. There were a few times where my partner had to stay in that house on his own, and he was recording floorboards creaking upstairs. All the pets were downstairs with him, and he was watching telly, and he had to force himself to stop and have a listen. Now, when I used to be at home on my own and my mum would go to work, because I used to work in different shifts, so some days I would do nights and then I would play video games downstairs in a little office corner. I would hear louder noises. Someone stepping, walking, pacing up and down the corridor upstairs. And sometimes it would be quite scary and quite worrying. I mean, at one point I did think that our house wasn't haunted, but someone actually broke in or was living secretly, which is quite bizarre. I've seen a few videos where people claim that they didn't know that this homeless man was living together with them. He was just hiding in, like, I don't know, like a secret room. I can't remember that video exactly, but after watching that I did begin to kind of think, perhaps this is happening to my mum, perhaps there is someone living together with us. And I would do my best to try and catch them out, but to my experience I was never really very successful when it came down to this. And so yeah, the first entity I came across was in fact the old woman. Now her name I never got, even after doing spirit communication, and she never answered, and she sort of disappeared as we went on living in that house. But yeah, you would hear her pacing up and down the corridor quite often. And there was quite a disturbing experience that occurred. It was start of October 2020. I came back from work. My mum wasn't back home. She was already gone. And she went shopping, I think it was. Besides the point. I sat downstairs after making some coffee, and I heard whispers coming from upstairs, whispering my name. And I just thought to myself, no, not today. I walked out the house, closed the door, locked it, and went and sat in the park until my mum returned. Once my mum returned, I explained to her what happened. It was a feminine, cold whisper coming from up the stairs. And I thought to myself, right, this is when I will do a cleansing. I did a cleansing, but nothing worked really. So I decided to kind of ignore everything happening around me. And that is where the second entity comes in. It was a summer evening when we first started noticing it. That was, yeah, around August, start of sort of September, so you can say start of autumn, just before I was hearing whispers. My partner and I, we sat downstairs. We had a film on, and I looked into the doorway and saw a very tall, dark shadow standing in the doorway, observing. I looked at my partner and I said, "Look at the doorway." And he jumped. And the figure just sort of disappeared. It wasn't there anymore when I looked at it, and he was shocked. He was like, "What was that?" I said, "I'm not sure what it was. It didn't feel evil or malevolent. It just felt very weird." Sorry, I'm just hearing different cracks even now behind me when I talk about it. It was quite chilling. But we saw that figure quite often in the evenings. Now, my mum's corridor stretches throughout the house once you have the entrance, and at the bottom of the corridor is where the kitchen starts, and that's usually where I would be washing the dishes or something. So one evening, my mum picked me up from work, we got back home, and she said, "Go to the kitchen, warm something up for yourself. I'll be upstairs." And I said, "All right." So I was preparing my food and I looked out the window, which was literally opposite the corridor in the kitchen, and I saw the same reflection, this tall, dark being with a hat, surprisingly enough. It wasn't like a top hat, but perhaps maybe a fedora. I looked behind me again and there was nothing. And I thought, maybe because I worked for so long, I'm just seeing things. But then my stepfather reported the same thing. He came back late at night from work. He made himself a coffee because he was going to go watch TV afterwards to unwind. And as he was watching, he looked to his left out the window and he saw this dark figure. Now we have garden lighting. My mum's put fairy lights up at that point. He saw this dark figure that summer 2021. It was quite scary. But then again, he just said he's probably just tired. But he was really creeped out because the following few nights when he came back from work, he wasn't going into the living room. Instead, he just didn't even drink the coffee. He just had a glass of water and went back upstairs to sleep because he didn't want to stay on his own in the living room. But that entity too seems to sort of fade. At that stage in 2021, I was becoming more and more curious about haunted dolls, and I did purchase a few, and I didn't really think that it would come to anything. I had 3 dolls. I still have them, and I purchased also a 4th doll later on. And I was told that the spirits that are attached to these dolls have been binded are spirits of children. And I thought to myself, you know, I'd like to give them a good home. Just out of pure love. I was feeling quite maternal in a very weird kind of way. And I wasn't really terrified of these spirits. I found quite comforting at times. these lovely spirits, whenever my mum will go mowing the lawn or doing any gardening work, they would be in my bedroom looking out the window. Now our lovely neighbour, an older lady, she was sitting one evening in her garden at the bottom, and you can literally see my window through all the bushes. And she said to my mum, "Did you have a party the other day while you was gardening? Because I swear I could see a couple of people looking through the window." My mum immediately knew it has something to do with me. I didn't tell her initially that I bought haunted dolls, and then I've let her know, and she was okay with that. But sometimes you'd have music on, you'd hear humming, which was quite sweet. And you'd hear this little girl humming all the time, and it's quite heartwarming. Whenever I touched the doll or picked it up, I'd always feel a cold breeze warm around me, but it wasn't like this, "Oh, I'm very scared." It was sort of comforting and loving. So I never felt threatened by these spirits. And I never really did any spirit communication or anything else like this. Perhaps I should do, but I sort of let them rest. Let's get to my fourth doll, which was quite interesting. My fourth doll wasn't actually a child, it was an older woman, middle-aged. Wonderful spirit. And she always tries to bring happiness into the room and change the whole vibe if there's too much tension. A lot of times when I would feel sad or depressed, she's been there, and I can sometimes sense a presence because I start feeling more comfortable, more smiley, just sort of lighter and happier. At first I absolutely loved troll dolls, and I did not think that it would be haunted. So I remember unpacking the troll doll, saying to her, "Welcome into our house, I hope that you are happy here." And I always found it important that when you do accept a new spirit into the home, that you make them feel welcomed. I think that's really important. So that's what I would do, and that's what I did with my little troll doll. And I placed it onto my bookshelf, and next to my bookshelf I had a very heavy bag, and that was my works bag. And just as I placed the doll, I just kept on looking at it because I was like, "You know what, I'm gonna do some reading now." So I sat on my bed, glancing over the troll doll from time to time, and I said, "If you are attached to the troll doll, and if you are present in the room," I asked the spirit to let me know, and my bag, my heavy bag, fell on the floor, just toppled over, and that made me jump, and I was like, "Oh Jesus." I still remember it scared me, and I think the spirits that are around me, they know that I can spook quite easily sometimes, so they are quite quiet, to put it this way. Once my partner and I moved into our current property, once we bought the home, and I transferred all of my haunted dolls, I did also say, "Welcome into our new home." And I said, I told you I'd never leave you. You're always going to have a home wherever I go. And the first night in our property, when I had the dolls, my partner and I could hear little footsteps everywhere around the house. I was pregnant at the time. It made me smile, and again I had this maternal feeling. I can hear little footsteps, he could hear little footsteps, and we both felt as if we were watched all the time. As we bought more furniture and furnished our living space, we did have a few occurrences. At first my partner looked behind me, and in the living room he saw us where the dolls are stored. well, the vessels. He saw like a little girl stand behind me. Sort of sent shivers down my spine. But my partner said, "Oh God, I just thought I saw something standing behind you like a little girl." He's like, "I'm not scared. Just thought I'd let you know." And I said, "You know what? I didn't feel anything at that time. I'm just so comfortable with them all." There was a few occurrences. I'm not sure if it was one of the children's spirits or it was someone else coming around. So last year, October, I had my lamp on the bedside and it started flickering. It was like a Morse code. I wish I would have taken down the intervals and everything. But it was flickering. So yeah. The most recent occurrence was after my grandma passed away. I had quite a few dreams where she would come and see me, and you know, I've had things happen in my life. She was like a mother to me. I'd always run to her for anything, and I'm so grateful for her. And I'm very happy that her spirit literally came to me while I was sleeping. I always wanted her to see me getting engaged to the love of my life. And I was so sad once she passed away because it would have meant everything having her at my wedding. So the day that I got engaged, I didn't even think about my grandma at first. I was so overwhelmed and so happy about my ring that once I went to sleep I had a dream. And in this dream I was sitting on this wide, beautiful bed, and my grandma was looking healthy as ever. She was looking at my hand and saying, "Wow, honey, that is a beautiful ring. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations to you and your partner." Well, she said his name. And that was it. I woke up and I was crying. You know, I always told my grandma, because I had quite a late miscarriage. I lost my daughter last year. And my grandma said, "Once I pass away, I promise you that I will go and find your daughter in the spirit realm, and I will take good care. I will let you know." And once my grandma did pass away, I think it was like exactly a month later, I didn't even notice that it's been already a month since my grandma is gone. I didn't even think of it because I was busy caring for my son. I went to sleep again, quite neutral, and I dreamt of this beautiful room, and it was a beautiful white bed, and on that bed my grandma sat with a girl that was around she wasn't, I wouldn't say big, but she was around, I'd say like a year old or a bit maybe older. And I thought to myself, is she holding my cousin? Is she holding me, as we're the only females in the family? But the baby didn't look like her, or slightly me even. And then I thought to myself, my grandma always said that once she passes away, she will always let me know when she finds my daughter. And it brought comfort to me. And even now when I think about everything and the spirits that surround me, I'm extremely grateful for them. So I think it's always important not to always fear spirits. I know it's easy for me to say, and it's a bit harder to actually do it once you do have a paranormal encounter, but all of these experiences have completely changed me. So if you do have a loved one that potentially passed away or is on the other side, as the months grow darker, light a white candle for them. It's anyone that you know, even though it doesn't even have to be a family member. If it's a friend or someone you knew, or someone you really liked, someone you was familiar with, not even a celebrity, you know, whoever it was that made a huge significance in your life, do light a white candle. And do remember to always say thanks. Thank you for being in my life, or thank you for being a part of my life. And be grateful. Now, I know there's spirits that are often quite malicious, but people that you knew, usually family members, if you got along with them in life, in reality I say, then there's no reason why they would threaten you or make you feel uncomfortable when they're manifesting themselves into our world again. So yes, I'd like to leave you on that note, and I really do hope that you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video.